council meeting. We are in session now. We'll begin with an opening prayer from Amy Foxy.
Thank you. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, Lord, we just come to you this morning and are just so grateful for your grace and your mercy and your wisdom. And Lord, your word says that if we ask, you will give it to us liberally. And so, Lord, we ask that you would give us wisdom today to do the very best for the DeKalb County citizens. We pray all this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you, Amy. Okay,
Make sure your mics are on and pulled close, please.
and what closed?
Like this?
Pulled close, your mics.
Okay, everybody should have had a
Except-
copy of the minutes to go over. I do have a couple corrections to note. And I don't know if anybody else does, but it'd be down there under matter of reorganization, second paragraph, it says William Van Wy nominated William Van Wy for president.
Yeah, no.
So,
God damn, SOB nominated me?
and then on the second page,
That was you, right?
yeah, yes.
That's still the same move.
And it's down about third paragraph from the bottom, which says, starts out with miscellaneous. Michelle gave the council. It'd be about 4 lines down. It says, Rick Snyder feels some of these issues are due to proper maintenance prior to her taking over the building. Should that be improper maintenance? Does anybody else have any additions or corrections to the minutes? Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Have a motion by Rick Ring. Do we have a second? Second by Bob Kraft. All those in favor of approving the minutes from the January 8th, 2025 meeting signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'll sustain since I wasn't here.
Okay, bill sustained. Motion is carried, minutes are approved. Okay, next we'll go to additionals and transfers. On the additionals, the first one we have, County General Information Systems. And it is Fund 1001, account number 34140. The title is Software Maintenance. The amount requested is $319,500. Was this included in the annual budget request? I have a question on this one. It's checked yes, and the reason it was not included was an error in budget processing. So should that be a no? We said it was included in the annual budget, and the reason it was not included was an error in the budget processing.
Was the actual expense was included in the budget, but it was the wrong dollar amount? Is that the
Yeah,
situation?
that would probably be.
Is it? Okay, thank you. How will this appropriation be used? It'll be used for software maintenance yearly expenses. Is this a recurring expense? The answer is no. Will other expenditures be necessary? The answer is no. Was it discussed with the liaison? Yes, and that was Bob Kraft. Okay, do we have a motion to approve? $319,500.
I'll approve. I'll make that motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Bob Kraft. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Bill Van Wy. Any further discussion or questions from the council? Amy?
Yeah, just, so this was missed in the budget? I'm sorry, I didn't hear what.
I think it was, the zeros weren't there. Is that right, Susan?
Correct.
It was $319 or 3,190 or something?
It was just a mistype.
Yeah.
That answer your question?
I mean, it's congruent with what we pay annually for software maintenance.
Correct.
I mean, it's not an out-of-the-line number, it just was wrong when we put it through in the budget.
Any further discussion? Any questions? We'll call for the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. The next one comes to us from Superior Court 1. It's from the general fund. Fund number is 1001, account number 11421. The account title is bailiff. Pardon me. And total amount requested is $13,700. Was this included in the annual budget request? The answer is no. And the reason, retirement was not known. How will this appropriation be used? Pardon me. PTO payout for long-term employee and replacement employee overlapping for training. How was this cost determined? It was estimate of $8,209 for PTO payment remaining for replacement employee. Is this a reoccurring expense? The answer is no. Will other expenditures be necessary? The answer is no. Was it discussed with the liaison? Yes, and that was Dave Yard. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Excuse me, we have a motion by Rick Ring. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Bill Van Wy. Any further questions or discussion?
Yeah, Dave, I do have a question. The bailiff, when was that retirement announced? Is that something that happened in the month of January, or did it happen before the end of the year?
No.
I can't answer that for sure. The judge came down and talked to me in January when he asked me about it. But it wouldn't have been prior to when we were budgeting.
Or budget approval?
Right.
Okay. And then was the overlap, did that start in January?
It hasn't started yet.
It hasn't started yet. So there wasn't an overlap that took place in December?
Nothing has happened.
Okay. Okay, so this is something that's in play as the retirement even began? I mean,
No,
when's,
she's still here.
she'll be here until
I don't know. I don't have
a
that
further
date.
date to be named later?
Yeah.
All right, great. All right, that answers my question. Thank you.
You're good?
But
Okay.
but it is consistent with what we've done with other retirements, where we've overlapped.
Yeah.
Now,
Right.
it's nice if you know about it when you're doing the budget, but, you could
Right.
have anybody retiring between now and whenever, and we wouldn't know about it in time.
Yeah, that wasn't my concern, was the overlap. It was, my concern was this known in December, and now we're just not learning about it in February? That was the real concern.
As far as I know, no. I believe that that judge found out about it in January and then came down and asked me what to do.
All right, thank you. Appreciate that.
I had a question also. So the 8,000 was the payout to the employee?
It has not been paid out yet.
Okay.
It will be up to that. I figured in what she has right now. If she uses any prior to leaving, then obviously she can't get paid for what she's already used.
Right. Okay. And then the remaining for replacement employee, what does that mean, I guess? Is that training or what is
So
that?
that they can have two,
Two at the same time, you're saying?
yeah.
They will overlap and they'll need the additional funding to pay for that overlap. Okay, got it. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We'll call for the question. All those in favor of approving the $13,700 for Superior Court 1 bailiff, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. The next additional is regarding the Pocobosh Task Force Fund 4,900. And the department, our auditor is acting for a physical agent for the Pocobosh Coalition. Now, that was for several groups, wasn't it, Susan?
Yeah.
11 different municipalities or counties, 4 counties and several cities and towns.
And we're basically like the pass-through on this.
Yes.
Right. Okay, fund name is the Pocobosh Task Force Fund. Fund number is 4900. The amount requested is $109,800. And the Pocobosh Coalition funds received and the fund needs appropriated to pay their bills. Was this included in the annual budget request? The answer is no, and the reason it was not included was created in 2024, not included in the 25 budget funds. How will this appropriation be used? It'll be used for software maintenance fees, other expenses as directed by the coalition. Is this a reoccurring expense? The answer is yes. And the reason for the other expenditures, again, as the coalition sees fit. It was discussed with the liaison, and that was Bob Kraft. Now, there are several items on here in this 109,000. There is operating supplies, fund number 22130 for $10,000. Software maintenance, fund number 34140 for $20,000. Lease, fund number is 34080 for $5,000. Other service fees, fund number 32780 for $60,000. And equipment, fund number 44430 for $14,800. If we have consensus, we could handle this on one motion. Do we have consensus? Rick?
I'm fine
Okay.
with that. I just wanted to point out that all of those funds were amounts that were put in our account here because they're the fiscal agent that came from Bluffton, Ossian, Fort Wayne, Allen County, DeKalb, Wells County, Waterloo, Auburn, Auburn, Angola, and Steuben County.
Thank you.
There's an assessment that they do every year, and then that money comes into.
And no, we had a discussion, the council did on that. We had a breakdown of what each one of those municipalities contributed for that there.
But if you look at it, there's only $84,000 in that. How often do they fund it?
Well, they send out a bill once a year. How many of them paid, I don't know.
Okay, like I can say in the fund, it says only 84,682. But you got more coming in. And that will cover this.
I can't spend it if I don't have it.
So you're gonna have,
So instead of coming to you every single time they ask me to pay something and pay for an additional appropriation every single time.
Yeah, I understand what you're
Then I
saying.
did the full amount, so it's done.
Yeah, and this appropriates it into the right account, so you're ready to go to spend it when it's all in.
Correct.
So Rick, I think what you were saying was that local governments they're the ones who are paying into this fund for the trails, and we're just the pass-through agent so it's,
We needed.
the county isn't adding additional funds.
No.
The local cities have put in their own funds.
Right, exactly.
It's even beyond
And
local.
we needed a governmental
Outside
unit.
counties.
We needed a governmental unit to handle that funding. And so
Correct.
it's still, it'll be audited by State Board of Accounts and everybody else to keep trail of it. And each one of those counties or municipalities has a representative on the board, which typically would have met this afternoon, but they canceled the meeting.
Probably a wise idea.
Yeah.
Bob, do you have any idea what the other service fees are for $60,000? What would that look like for a trail system?
It could be planning, design, it could be a lot of different things.
Yeah, engineering, they've done some marketing work.
And this is just an estimate of where I think that I might have to spend something. I don't have
transfer.
anything saying, this is what I need.
You don't have a request yet, so.
I just spread it apart, so I have some in supplies, services, and equipment, so then if I need to transfer around, I hopefully have it in the right category that it just can be transferred and
The one thing I
Bills
can
paid.
tell you is that none of this money is going to be applied to the actual build.
Construction, right?
The actual build or construction is left to each municipality or county or group to raise those funds. This is all for planning and coordination amongst all of those governmental units, so that, because it is one long trail from Bluffton and Obachi State Park up to Pokagon and Angola. So that this group is meant to coordinate all the activity in that build.
And the biggest thing outside of construction is engineering,
Sure.
design work.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve it. I'll call for the question. All those in favor of approving the 100, what? You say something, Bill?
Did we have a motion?
Oh, we had a motion, didn't we?
We-
Yeah. Yeah, you said, yeah. So,
Welcome, Bill. Glad you're with us this week.
okay,
Have a good day, folks.
let me start over here. We have a motion on the floor to approve the $109,800 for the Pokebotch Task Force Fund. I'll call for the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, motion is carried, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to 1. Okay, the last one we have is from,
Who voted against that?
Amy Prosser. Okay, the next one comes to us from DeKalb County Community Corrections, and the fund name is 9130. It's the Change Discretionary Grant, Fund Number 9130. The amount requested is $8,868. You have an attached spreadsheet that comes to us with a breakdown on these. If you want me to read through each one, I will. If not, what's council's pleasure? You want to look at it yourself? Have you looked at it? Do you want me to read it, each amount? You good?
Read through it.
Okay. Everybody else good with that? Okay. Was this included in the annual budget? The answer is yes. How will this appropriation be used? Again, see the attached spreadsheet. Specific cost of the items is $8,868. Cost is determined again by looking at the spreadsheet breakdown. Is this a reoccurring expense? The answer is no. Will other expenditures be necessary? The answer is no. Was it discussed with the liaison? And the answer is yes. And the liaison's name is Amy Dembski. Okay, we have 2, 4, 8 different categories. This $8,868 is to be broken down as follows. Drug Enforcement Supplies, Fund Number 22190 of $225. Incentives, Fund Number 22255. The amount is $214. Chief Operating Supplies, Fund Number 22730, $325. Other service fees, Fund Number 32780, $1,600. Building Repair and Maintenance, Fund Number 33680, $1,000. Lease, Fund Number 34080, the amount is $3,000. Travel, Training, and Education, Fund Number 34295, the amount is $1,250. And the Equipment, Fund Number 4430, the amount is $1,254 for a total amount of $8,868. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Have a motion by Rick Ring to approve. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Bill Van Wy. Any further discussion from the council or questions?
This money received in a grant, and we're just putting it in the right place.
That's correct, right? So, I say yes, and then I ask Susan, but we're correct.
Correct, it's a new grant that we haven't had before.
Yeah, okay. Great, thank you.
Any
Thanks for clarifying that.
Any further discussion? Okay, we'll call for the question. All those in favor of approving the grant, the DCCC juvenile grant for $8,868 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. That takes care of the additionals. Now, we do have some transfers that we need to look at here. And And the first transfer request comes from Weights and Measurements. The fund name is County General, fund number 1001. The amount to be transferred is $150 and is from account number 22210, Petroleum Product Supplies, to account number 35151. The account title is Other Garage and Motor, what?
It would be services.
Okay, for $150. Why is this transfer needed? I had to take my truck to Glenbrook Dodge for a recall that the local Dodge dealer would not do since they were not a Pro Master distributor. When I went to take it there, the hood latch wouldn't open, and the battery was dead, and I had to take the whole floor out, I got a jump and took it to Glenbrook. They said I needed a new battery and some other new hardware. Will additional appropriations be requested due to this transfer? The answer is no. Was it discussed with the liaison? Yes, and that was Amy Prosser. Do we have a motion for the $150 transfer?
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion by Rick Collins, second. Second, Amy Prosser. Any further discussion from the council? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote on the question. All those in favor of the $150 transfer request signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. The next one comes to us from the local public health, and there are several items here. Okay, why is this transfer needed? Partners and their funding amounts were not all established before the budget presentations. First of all, the amount to be transferred is $17,900. Fund name is Local Public Health Services, fund number 1161. Will additional appropriation be requested due to this transfer? The answer is no. Was it discussed with the liaison? The answer is yes, and that liaison is Bill Van Wy. Okay, what we have here, I'll read through these first, and then we'll see if we can get consensus to do it on one motion. Equipment to full-time school liaison, Slice County nurse, $3,100. Equipment, fund number 44430 to PERF, fund number 12100 of $1,300. Equipment, fund number 44430 to Social Security, fund number 12300, $2,000. St. Martin's subgrant, fund number 32802 to Office Supplies, 22110, $4,000. St. Martin's subgrant, fund number 32802 to Incentives, 22255 for $525. Parkview DeKalb subgrant, fund number 32803 to Incentives, 22255. Fund number 164, or the amount was $1,640. Drug-free DeKalb, fund number 32804 to Incentives, fund number 22255 for the amount of $3,050. Mental Health Fund, fund number 32812 to Incentives, 22255, fund number 1580. Other maintenance contracts, fund number 34360 to Incentives, 22255 for $705. Do we have consensus from the council to take these all as one? Okay, thank you. Do we have a motion to approve?
So move.
We have a motion by Bill Van Wy. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Rick Collins. Any further discussion or questions from the council?
This is all corrections. I mean, she's just getting the money in the right place. Just nothing according to what she has to do it. So it's just, they didn't know.
Correct. This is additional changes that were done after budget approval, and we could take care of the ones that were in the correct category, and these were the remaining ones that had to be approved.
This question might be for Rick. Ring, do we know if we're getting all that money? I know they're trying to governor was trying to cut that health department extra money that was coming. Do we know if all that money is coming?
We haven't
the-
heard a final
Okay.
decision that I'm aware of.
Because the
health-
governor was
the
talking about
HFI
cutting this
money
extra
for
money
health.
from the health department that the state was issuing
Well,
out.
this year's, I think, has
This
been
year's is, so we're
received,
talking
but
next
we
year.
don't know what's going to happen
Okay.
for fiscal '26 because the initial budget presentation had removed $50 million from the governor's.
But this
from that.
year's was
But this
already
year should be
approved.
fine.
Yeah,
It's-
okay.
It's the '26 that's up in question.
Okay, thanks.
Any further questions or discussion from the
Yeah, I
council?
had a question.
Amy?
Just- Yeah, that's, we're moving $7,500 over to incentives. Do we know what that is?
I don't know what it is.
Incentives, is that just
Don't.
something that they
Apologize
use
for
in their
that, 'cause-
programs, or?
It's programs.
I think,
I know it's programs, but she didn't give me much detail.
yeah, and I think that, and I haven't given a final determination yet, but I think that they were wanting to possibly get some like gas gift cards to help people get places they needed to be, or maybe as an incentive if you passed your drug test or something like that. But gift cards are another animal, so
And also, they
not
want,
at that yet.
also want incentives to, well, you come in and get a flu shot, give a $10 gift certificate to somewhere or something, help some of the poorer people.
But it's not incentives to the employees.
No,
It's incentives to the
Correct.
people that they are assisting
that
or
they're
helping.
serving?
I noticed she said something about, yeah, I remember that after she made the comment that, some gift cards, because there's some people who don't have enough money to force back and forth. And they want to make sure they get as many flu shots out as they can and different things and stuff. So they're trying to help out some of the less people, privileged.
Expensive.
Any further questions from the council? Okay, we'll call for the question then. All those in favor of approving the $17,900 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried.
Can I say one thing on this? She is getting a lot of calls from other counties to show how she's doing this process. She is one of the top leading nurses in the state, and she gets a lot of calls from different counties to say, how'd you set this up and how you set this up? She's doing an excellent job.
Cheryl has always been ahead of the game, and she uses the staff and other, like she's always used Homeland Security's people to help her and help her plan. She has always been an example for everyone.
Okay, that takes care of our additional appropriations and transfer requests. The next item in your packet are non-approval transfers. Up next, Randy Fox with an airport update.
Good morning, all.
Morning, Randy.
We did distribute the briefing document with your packet. The NAVAIDS relocation project, as far as we can go, is done. The inner outer markers and stuff that they talk about on the release is a fan-shaped vertical orientation radio signal that airplanes would note on the way in toward landing. And apparently the FAA is having trouble getting those certified across the nation. It was kind of funny when they were trying to certify our glide slope and stuff, the airplane they used broke down twice. So anyway, we will be working with a BFNS to make sure that we're closing out all the grants and get that all finished. The automated weather service receiver and system is a on-site, and it gives us automated weather. So when you, as a pilot, you tune into that frequency and you get an update of the weather as it is right at that moment. We're installing that. It was part of some grant money that we designated for that. We had one before. The equipment was outdated, so we're going to do that. The beacon tower, I think, is over 100 years old, and people are having a concern about climbing it. So they're going to install a new beacon tower that will tip. So they can bring it down, work on it, stand it back up. It's probably one of the coolest things I saw as a pilot. I flew in from Anderson one night about 9 o'clock, and you can see the beacon from about 10 to 15 miles away. We have a rotating green and white beacon on the airport, which designates a lighted runway. If you key up your microphone about 5 times in 3 seconds, it turns the runway lights on for 20 minutes. And watching that little rectangle light up in the middle of the night was pretty cool. So that's all part of this, that we can designate where the airport is, and they'll know that it's a lighted runway. All of the designations and the charts and stuff will say that it's pilot-controlled lighting. And we are still looking, we're going to look for new financing for the 3 hangars that we're looking to install next year. The FAA, for some reason, for our project, and we don't know why, has decided the build, operate, transfer mode of construction is not encouraged. And so we're looking at other alternatives for funding. We're looking probably somewhere in the neighborhood of $1 million per hangar. And in the process, at some point, the old hangars at the far west end of the runway are going to be taken down. Technically, they impinge into the runway protection area. And so as we replace those, some of those will come down, be removed. Whether we'll put something up there in the immediately after, that's up to funding and the needs of the airport. And then on the back, we were really shut down for a lot last month, and so business jets are 63, 164 helicopter operations. Those are primarily Samaritan. Multi-engine 37 and 480 single-engine operations. So a total of 744. We're normally operating at 12 to 1,500 or more operations, but weather and closings for repairs and things took some time. And last but not least, Sweet Aviation gave us a overall view of what fuels they're selling. Since we're not a big operation, but they sold 169,238 gallons of Jet A fuel in 2024. We sold 35,000 gallons of 100 low lead, which would be the airplanes like I used to fly. They serviced 29,000 airplanes, which means they took the truck out and filled them up. We had the 5,838 self-serve gallons sold, and combined
That wasn't put in at the beginning of the year, was it? That was installed sometime later in the year?
It was it was installed, and then there was a part that wasn't working, and so it hasn't been in, I don't believe, a full year, but the automated fueling is now operational. You stick your credit card in just like you do the gas station.
And that was my only point. That amount was not for a full 12 months. It was just partial.
Yep. So it was, and again, we're not a big operation, but we sold 204,000 gallons of fuel last year. And with that, I'll take any questions.
That 204,000 up significantly from before?
Well, we don't, Sweet's only been there just a little over a year and a half. I think they started in November of 23. I don't know that we have figures to verify. We made some big changes by taking, we used to have 12,000 gallons of Jet A and 12,000 gallons of 100 low lead in 2 big tanks out there. When we put in the self-service, now we've got 5,000 gallons of low lead for the light aircraft, and we have 24,000 gallons on site of Jet A. And so the availability to fuel the aircraft is considerably better than it was. I'm sure at the end of this year, we'll be able to compare these numbers and see how they come. We know coming up, 26, I think, for sure, when they resurface the original 5,000 feet of runway, we're probably going to be shut down for 27 days because there'll be people on the runway grinding the surface, relaying the surface, putting in new lights. So we've got some big closings coming up yet, but once that's done, then that project is.
Out of curiosity, when the jet fills up, how many gallons they pump in at one time?
Honestly, I don't know.
Because you went from a 5 to 24, is that because they have to put more fuel in it?
Well, Samaritan uses the Jet A as well. So, and then Rick James has some aircraft that are out there, and, you know, the light aircraft that I flew would get between 4 and 7 gallons an hour. So at 100 miles an hour or so. So you can,
I'm just curious.
yeah. I don't know. I'll try to find out just for, I'm not supposed to say just for grins. I got that, I got in trouble for that before. But yeah, but we'll see if we can find out generally what they take. But jet engines burn a lot of fuel.
I figured that.
Yeah.
So the increased tanks became as a result of the projection that we're going to have increased jet traffic.
Yes.
It's not a projection of larger tanks in.
No. It was, we're anticipating with the 7,000-foot runway that we're going to see much more jet traffic because of the safety and overrun capabilities. We just want to be ready, and if the jets come in, we want to be able to fuel them. And when Laura was the FBO, basically they would get a tank of fuel in 5,000 or 6,000 gallons at a time. She would immediately get on the phone as soon as they were done pumping and try to order more fuel because it was hard to get. And so now we're ordering full tankers, and we can fill the tanks up and have a steady supply of fuel without these ebb and flow of availability.
Randy, airports about with the size of ours out here, are we one of the busier ones in the state based on size, or?
I don't have that kind of statistic. I'm sure I can find out. I do know we're busier than most of the airports around us. And again, our intention is to be busier yet. We want people using our nice new runway, and hopefully they feel comfortable about it. Our biggest issue, we had an ice storm a couple days ago, and the guys said it took 2.5 hours to sand the runway, the capability of making it safe to operate. So we don't really have the capability of putting down a lot of liquid to do that. And again, we don't have ice storms very often. We have the big broom that cleans the runway, but ice is a whole different animal.
To Dave's, or to Bill's question, I'd like to compare it to Warsaw. Warsaw's got some industry there that I think uses aircraft frequently, and maybe it'd be a good comparison to see where they're at.
Well, I'm sure Elkhart probably does too.
Goshen is also another sweet property now that there's a fixed
Yeah.
base, so.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they
and
just
so,
took
and
that
those
over.
are all right within our immediate area. They're not southern Indiana or anything
Yeah.
like that.
Well, let's get this airport all nice and snazzy so Fort Wayne can keep growing right up to it.
Well, again, when Chuck Surak came to interview to put Sweet Aviation as our FBO, Chuck said, "This is perfect." He says, "I'm 17 minutes from my home." And he said, "I've got all this, don't have to deal with the Fort Wayne issues. And right here it is, and it's ready to go." So Chuck was very complimentary of what we had at that point, and that was before we actually had the extra 2,000 feet of runway added.
Since you used on Sweetwater, Do you feel your fuel quality is better than what you had in the past?
Fuel is fuel. I think a lot of times you, like anybody else, you buy it where you can get it. These guys, if someone wants fuel, they'll run out, jump in the truck, go out and deliver it. There are different thresholds of fuel cost. If they have to take a truck out to a hangar to deliver fuel, it costs a little more. If they deliver it on the ramp, it's a little less. If you pump your own fuel, it's less yet. So there's incentives there, but
Other thing I wanted to ask, and you might have said this and I must have missed it, the way my day's going. But anyway, what does the helicopters fly off of?
well, there are two groups out there that fly helicopters right now. Paratus is a heliport, and they repair Robinson helicopters and do some charter work. And then Samaritan uses the Jet A fuel. The Robinson helicopters use 100 low lead. They have piston engines.
Thank you.
Randy, you mentioned the 2.5 hours because of the ice storm, and
Right.
you had talked about this in the last one, so I hate to repeat it, but we do have equipment coming.
Yes.
We have purchased equipment. It is
Yep.
coming. It's just like everything else, it's in a 8-9 month
Yes.
backup. So
At
hoping to have
least.
that for the beginning of the next winter. It won't be here for this
Right.
year, but that will lower the amount of time it takes to get the airport
Sure.
open, which is very costly to the airport. When it's closed in those amount of times, you have planes diverting.
Oh, yeah.
And when those planes divert, they don't fill up fuel here, they don't
Yes.
pay fees, they don't. So.
Yep. And Russ said during the ice storm, he took our big truck with the broom on it out and even put the blade down and ran the broom simultaneously. And he said all it did was make it shiny or took the top off. Yeah, it just made it, he just.
I saw some people ice skating out there. Was that part of that, or?
Yeah,
Was that?
he could have been.
Could have been.
It was like that.
Yeah. So it is a big piece of property. It's 100 feet wide and 7,205 feet long. So it takes a significant amount of time to clear it, to be safe.
Anybody else have any questions for Randy? Thank you, Randy. Very good report.
Very much.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Randy.
Okay, next, Steve Howell from the Northeastern Center.
Good morning.
Morning.
Thank you for having me here today. A few weeks ago, maybe 6 weeks or so ago, I sent a Northeastern Center annual report for DeKalb County. You should have received. I have some extra copies if you need those. So, good, excellent. So I always appreciate the opportunity, let you know what we're doing at Northeastern Center, a little bit more about who we are, what we do. We are one of 24 community mental health centers in the state. Our primary service area is Noble, LaGrange, Steuben, and DeKalb counties. We've been around almost 50 years. Our business primarily is behavioral health treatment. We do some community education, we do some interventions where we're needed, and we do some trainings, but primarily we are in the treatment business. So the folks that come to us, and we had almost 5,000 individuals last year, we see diagnosis with substance use disorders, primarily alcohol, cannabis, marijuana, stimulants, those kinds of things. And we also see people who have severe and persistent mental illnesses, whether that be schizophrenia, sometimes bipolar can be very severe, depression, anxiety. But a point I wanted to make is, and this kind of resonated with me when I was talking with one of our state politicians not too long ago, and the people that come for behavioral health services are us. They are our neighbors, they're our friends, they're our family. And it dawned on me talking to this politician that their thought was that everybody that comes to us is psychotic. They don't know who they are. They're rambling, they're babbling. We do see those people, but you know, most of the people that we see, they may be struggling with anger, they may be struggling in their marriage, they may, they're having a lot of distress, and so I saw that really as an opportunity for education about, you know, who we treat, because there are stereotypes and stigmas still out. We provide a variety of services over the 4 counties. We do case management, we do counseling, we do medication, we do what we call skill building, and we do that in a variety of settings. We have a hospital, we have 5 outpatient clinics, we have 4 residential homes, we have a clubhouse. In Auburn, we have, DeKalb County, we have recently engaged in what we call our Community Health and Outreach Center. A couple years ago, we bought the old Children's First building out on Wesley Road, and we've converted that into a crisis center. And the concept behind that is while we have a hospital and while we have outpatient services, there are a number of individuals who fall in between those. And so this is set up as a 23-hour crisis receiving and stabilization service. We walk a fine line because we're not a homeless shelter, and I remind myself and my staff and the community of that at all times. However, it's a place that law enforcement can drop somebody off if they need to. They really haven't broken any laws. They don't want to take them to jail. They don't want to take them to the emergency department. It's also a place a family member can take someone, or someone can just walk in. And so the idea is that they stay there no more than 23 hours. And we give them anything from a hot meal and a shower and a change of clothes to getting them re-engaged with mental health services. Most of the folks that we see have been in the system. They've been in the legal system, DCS, probation, the mental health service. So the big goal is to try to get them re-engaged. To give you a little bit more statistics about that, we opened this crisis unit. We call it NEC Cares. We opened it in December of 2023, and we went 24/7 in February of 2024. We had 571 admissions in the calendar year of 2024. A lot of what that, again, is designed for is diversions. So people who don't need to be in jail, people who don't need to go to the emergency department. We calculated 92 diversions, and of course, we're looking at cost savings with that. And based on Blue and Company report, statewide, these crisis stabilization units saved the state $125 million. Which is wonderful at the state level, but I want to know what impact it's having at the local level. So our calculation in the last year was, once we paid for, take out the expenses from the unit, our savings to Northeast Indiana was over $700,000. And that figure came from the cost of incarceration and the cost of going to the emergency department. So very proud of that, doing some good work, saving dollars, and helping people who don't need to be in jail or the emergency department kind of get re-engaged with what they need. Another program that we started that I like to sing the praises of is a transportation program that we started in August of 2022. This was a partnership with the state, the Division of Mental Health and Addiction. Our goal the first year was 800 rides. The caveat with this is the rides don't cost the client or the customer, if you will, anything, but they need to be engaged in the justice system. So we would give people rides to drug court, to probation, to the grocery store, to work, to wherever they needed to go. Our goal of 800 rides in a year made me a little nervous at first. We provided almost 1,000 rides in the first year. The second year, we provided over 5,000 rides, and it got renewed. We have funding for a third year to take us through September of 2026, and we're projected to provide another 4,700 rides this year. So we're kind of circling on the calendar when we're going to give that 10,000th ride, because we want to continue, but it's just been wonderful. And these are people who otherwise, you know, may have been violated on their probation, or transportation is such a challenge, as you know, so.
Those numbers are for all 4 counties.
Those are for all 4 counties, yes, yes. And if I broke those out, which I don't have those here, predominantly DeKalb County would be the highest, and Noble County. So when I took a quick look, but yeah, that is center-wide, that's region-wide. Yep. In terms of our financials, Northeastern Center, we employ about 240 individuals. We have 12 facilities around the four-county area. So our budget is around $22 million a year. When you line up largest to smallest, the 24 mental health centers, we're about 16th or 17th in the state. So the majority are bigger, and there's about a third that are smaller. In terms of the adjustments or charity care, if you will, out of that 22 million, about 45% of that, or a little over 9 million, is written off. For DeKalb County, that comes to about $2.7 million in adjustments in fiscal year '24. A couple other things I'll share with you, and then be glad to elaborate or answer any questions. Specific to DeKalb County, we served 1,272 individuals last year, which was a 5% increase from the previous year. That includes 246 youth. What it does not include is we have a school assistance program, and we have a school navigation program, and we also provide crisis services at school. When a tragedy happens and the school calls us, we'll go in and do what we can to help emotionally. And it does not count those numbers because we typically don't track. We can tell you where we went, but how many kids we touched, so to speak, we don't necessarily track. But out of that, almost 1,300, about 246 were kids. We had 114 adults who were admitted to our inpatient hospital over the year. Center-wide, we served 4,907 individuals, which was a 4% increase over the previous year. We had 458 DeKalb County residents who contacted our crisis line. And an important stat to me is that, the proof's in the pudding. So are people getting better? Are they satisfied with the services that we're providing? And we had a 92% overall satisfaction from DeKalb County residents last year. So again, we're a community mental health center, and I think the report kind of emphasizes those partnerships and our community involvement. So, yeah, with that, I'll be glad to elaborate or answer any questions.
Well, do you have a fleet of cars that travel, or how do you help people move from place to place?
We do. We have about 24 vehicles center-wide. We have partnerships with the Department of Transportation where we can get some of these vehicles at 10 to 20% of the cost that we pay, and IDOT pays the rest. But yeah, we have a fleet of vehicles that we maintain and transport people around.
Now, your place out here, where you bought here 2 years ago, that's just a 23-hour stay type of deal, isn't it?
Yeah. On Wesley Road, we actually have 3 buildings side by side by side. The first building to the west is the old Children's First that we converted into what we call a community health and outreach, and we host several services there. The big one, the entree, is our NEC Cares program, but we also house our emergency services team, mobile crisis team. We have a gatekeeper program that helps facilitate people who are on commitments or at the state hospital, so they're housed there. And then in the middle of that is our DeKalb outpatient clinic, which is a kind of a Monday through Friday, 8 to 8. They're open about 48 hours a week. And then next to that is our inpatient, 16-bed unit.
Got another question I forgot.
I serve on the Mental Health Coalition Committee. I just wanted to mention that when they did the crisis intervention training thing, it came out, the new center that you have there for people to take, police officers and other folks, crisis teams besides your own, to take those folks to, instead of the hospital or the jail, which are the two that typically escalates, or the hospital, it's a lot of wasted money and that kind of thing. So that, I praise you for that. That's great that we have that in our county. It seems to be really helping those folks that just need a little bit of direction. And in 23 hours seems short, but in 23 hours, a lot of times you can evaluate where the person is, what they need, do they not have their medication, all kinds of things can happen in that 23 hours that gets them back on the right path, which is wonderful. And then I've heard a lot about the transportation thing. I do want to commend your people, Corey Headley, and I can't think of the lady's name who's in charge of the transportation, but they are at all of those coalition meetings, and that's really important that you as a community partner are there with all the other agencies and, you know, the why, everybody else is trying to help folks in the community, and we're collaborating and talking about who can, you know, I know that I can send somebody there now, you know what I mean, from the Y, because we do have some people that are homeless and different people that come in, and it's great to know and to have first name basis with people from your agency. So kudos to your people for being involved in the coalition, and they're always there. They just always attend and always very participative in that discussion and community efforts. So thank you.
I just wanted to say thank you as well. I own a laundromat, which tends to attract homeless people. And we did have a gentleman about a month or so ago, who was just having a real mental crisis at that point in time and needed a place to go. And the police came and took him to your facility, the CARES unit, and it was a real blessing. So I just wanted to say thank you for that. Appreciate that very much.
Well, I'll keep coming back here. Those are very, very kind comments. We have got great staff, and yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Steve, this is meeting a great need of safety. This is something that's been a need nationally. I've been at several roundtables locally as well as with Suzanne Crouch on a state level, and this need was so great. And I just wrote, it's brings safety to our community, because these folks do need to be out of your business, and they need to be in a safe place, and it's safe to her clientele in there. It brings safety to the community. It brings safety to law enforcement. I have a son that's a confinement officer, not trained to handle this. I mean, he's trained to do what he does there, and brings safety to them. But most importantly, it brings safety to the individuals. These folks who we have treated like criminals for years, who just are not in a safe place mentally. They're not making decisions to be criminals. They're just not in the place to be able to make correct decisions. And I just think it's wonderful that we have that service here in DeKalb County. It's fantastic for our community.
Well, thank you as well. You know, we hope to continue to expand it. Funding is always a challenge. We were at the State House earlier this week, and, you know, there's a lot of the population we serve is Medicaid. Medicaid dollars they're just not there. And so, you know, there's a lot of concern we are one of 14 crisis units around the state, and it may have grown since I last checked that stat, but it's really a movement that is kind of overdue. Mental health care is changing, and, you know, there has to be funding for it, because we are the safety net. You know, we serve the underserved, and, you know, there has to be money for it as well, so. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
I was looking through your survey at the responses to different questions, and the numbers are really positive there. I mean, it's very impressive, the adults, where they feel they're at, and what you're providing, and the positive comments. I was especially impressed with the youth part and the positive things the youth had to say, as well as their parents about the program, treatment, and so on. So keep up the good work. That's really impressive numbers here.
Yeah, thank you. We've had some great recent partnerships. We've been able to get, working with Garrett Kaiser Butler schools, working with all the schools, the school navigation program. We actually have staff in schools. We also have what we call a school assistance program, where we offer 2 free sessions to anyone associated with the school. We don't call it a student assistance program because it applies to the staff as well. So if a teacher or anyone on staff at any of the schools needs any help, we want to be available to do what we can to help them. But I feel like we probably need to do more with kids. I think there's a lot of kids out there who are hurting, have a lot of anxiety, but they're a special population to reach. So yeah, if they're happy with our services and their caregivers, that is saying something.
And you said earlier that you're one of 24, and we're about mid-size to the other community mental health centers?
We're in the, probably, we're about 16th or 17th out of the 24.
Okay.
Yeah.
One of the things that I'd like to compliment you on, and I've done it, this will be a repeat to what I've said previously, is that Steve and the Northeast Center have been very careful with their communication, and they are, if you call them in and ask them a question, if you want to find out what they're doing, they're always right there and letting us know what they need. That's been one of the issues in the past with centers and people that I've talked to in other parts of the state. Their centers are not, they're not getting as much communication to the people that are actually paying the bill. And so it's been very nice that Steve is always in here, and, he's done a lot of great things. The center's done a lot of great things, and he'll tell you if there's a mistake or something that's happened that's not going well, they're gonna fix it. And they usually have. And this crisis intervention center is something we've needed for many years. You got police officers that are put in positions out in the public of dealing with some mental health issues that they're not trained to do. The hospital's got the same issue with the emergency department. And as Rick said, the confinement officers at the jail, having this crisis intervention center has just been a great asset. And I hope we can continue to keep that and keep it moving. So.
And I also like to say I appreciate you coming in and presenting this, because over the past, this has been a contentious subject in budget deals, because we didn't know where our money was spent or how it was worked. I appreciated the last 2 or 3 years of you coming in here, explaining how you work, how the money's used and everything. Because when I first got on this board, we saw this bill and no one knew where it was going. And we have talked in the past of going to a different company because we didn't know it. But I really appreciate, I think you've done a good job. We have had used you in our family, and I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, I am glad to come back at, anytime, certainly once a year, and present this to you, or more often as needed. And my contact information is in the report. Contact me if there's ever anything more I can do for any of you, personally or professionally. We're part of the community.
Steve, can I ask a real quick question? I know it's probably delicate because of the nature of the facility, but I've got to be honest with you, I've never walked through that facility. So it's probably a delicate matter to walk through it and see it, but because of the nature of what you're doing there, but.
We actually did some remodeling not too long ago, and so working with my marketing person on, what does that look like? Do we have for lack of a better term, an open house or something else? And so I can make sure to get you an invite to that event. If you'd just like to come over there sometime when it's good for you, just contact me and we'll arrange a time. And
Yeah, certainly the commissioners, the council, the community people certainly would want to be invited, but yeah, I would.
Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah, we'd love to see that. And reason with, I understand there's probably areas that are private and closed and not the ability.
Yeah,
to
I
walk
don't,
through.
we can work it out where if we've got any HIPAA concerns or patient contact that we could isolate that. So, yeah, we can work around that.
Thank you, appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? Questions, comments? Thank you, Steve. Keep up the good work.
Welcome. Thank you very much.
Okay, next item of business is approval of the 2024 county receipts and expenditures and total compensation. And I do want to say I saw all this in the paper here recently, so.
Yep. You can, you don't have to. Didn't know if we needed to
No, just, do we have
I
consensus?
don't think we did. I don't think we generally do because it's not a department of the county. Like later down, you'll see like Homeland Security and Public Defender, since they're the county departments, then you normally just acknowledge that you received what they submitted. So the expenditures, receipts, expenditures, and compensation, that's just my annual information that I have to provide and advertise.
This we do need to vote on, though. Okay. Has everybody had a chance to look over this? There's a lot of information here, and there's a lot of work that goes into this. You have,
Thank goodness we have a software system.
you have lots of entries in here. My goodness there.
Yep.
Do we have a motion to approve the county receipt of expenditures and total compensation, the report here that Susan has provided? Do we have a motion to accept and approve?
So moved.
We have a motion by Rick Ring. Do we have a second? Second by Amy Prosser. Do we have any further questions or discussion from the council? Hearing none, I'm going to call for the question. All those in favor of accepting and approving the 2024 county receipts and expenditures and compensation signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Your report is accepted, Susan.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the list is the annual report. We can do this in one motion for Homeland Security and the Public Defender's Office here. So has everybody had a chance to look through these? Okay, since we can do this in one motion, I'll entertain a motion to accept the approval for the Emergency Management, Homeland Security, and the annual report of the Public Defenders. Do I have such a motion? Okay, we have a motion, pardon me, by Amy Prosser. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Rick Collins. Okay, any further discussion from the council or questions on these two reports? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor of accepting the annual reports for Homeland Security and the Public Defender's Office signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried and the reports are accepted. Do we want to take a break now? Anybody ready for a break? Okay, yeah, let's take, we'll take 10 minutes here.
When we got
session, back in session. We have until 10 minutes before we do a public hearing. Want to talk a little bit about Senate Bill number 1 and a possible resolution. I'm going to let Rick talk to that in a couple minutes here, but you know, we've always been on the council, and this is just kind of an open discussion, we've always been very prudent here. And with what's being proposed by the governor and the reduction of property taxes could have a serious impact here on DeKalb County, every county, not only cities and towns, but schools and libraries and such. And if everything proceeds as the way it's looking right now, DeKalb County, we could come up about over $4 million short this next budget hearing. Now, that's not all for the council, or for the county. We're looking about $1 million for the county share, but the schools are going to take a big hit of over possibly $2 million. Libraries, your special units, and it could be kind of rough. Could be real rough. And so I just want everybody to start thinking about, at the next budget session here, and department heads to be prepared for possibly some tough cuts coming. Don't know yet. But my big concern is that with this tax revenue shortfall on property taxes, and I know every property tax owner is in favor of reducing property taxes, but that money's going to have to be picked up somewhere else. And I'm pretty sure, I know how the state operates, they're going to give you, they used to call it silos, or different ways that you could make up that money. And my concern right now, we in DeKalb County have been very prudent on delaying a wheel tax. And I'm very concerned that we're going to get backed into a corner where they're going to say, DeKalb County, you need to put a wheel tax on, or you're not going to get this money, this money, this money. We don't know. But I think that that's something we need to be aware of, that could be a corner that we get backed into, as well as doing some additional tax shifts. Don't know yet. And Rick is going to talk about this here, but it's really serious there that we're going to come up short and have to maybe make some pretty good cuts at the next budget session. Hopefully not, but I just want to be prepared and prepare everybody that this is a time to really be prudent here, because everything that we've been working on, we could get back to the corner here for some taxes or tax shifts that we've tried to put off as long as we can, so.
And what Dave is saying about shifts is absolutely true. Many of the effects of this Senate Bill 1 for this property tax relief and previous things that they've done for property tax relief, the legislature is constantly tweaking the system. And every time they tweak the system, it has unintended consequences. Things that they aren't sure, they thought might happen, but until it actually takes place, they don't know. So you always got to be careful. Now, first thing I want to say about SB 1, the numbers I'm going to give you right now are the ones that I did earlier in the week based on the fiscal report that was attached to SB 1. There were changes made in the Senate committee yesterday that will change some of these numbers. So these are not the ones that will actually go forward. But this is what the previous version of it would have cost. There was, if you looked at for DeKalb County in the third year of the current year, the 2028 budgeting, DeKalb County as a total would have lost $8 million. And that $8 million loss was divided up between county government, city government, township government, and schools, and then libraries and special taxing units. The breakdown was very similar from fiscal year 26, 27, and 28. Of the loss, 18% of it would have been for the county, almost 4% would have been townships. Cities and towns would have lost 23% of their revenue. school corporations would have lost 46% of their revenue. School corporations that are already having a tough time making it. Libraries, 3.6, and any special units was another 6%. But that's the breakdown. And so the resolution that you have in front of you was one that was developed by joint effort of the Association of Indiana Counties, the AIM, which is the Accelerating Indiana Municipalities. It's the city and town unit. And then I believe the School Board Association was also involved in it. So it was for all three groups were looking at SB1 and trying to head off the effects. There was some real dramatic testimony in that Senate committee earlier in the year, or earlier in the week. We had the president of the Indiana County Council the Indiana County Association, Sue Ann Mitchell, who is a commissioner in Kosciuszko County, testified, and Anton Neff, who is a council person and head of he's the president of the Indiana County Council Association. They testified at the Senate hearing. Cities and towns, you had Terre Haute and Carmel both testified about the dramatic problems that would happen if this went through. Last night, they did make some changes. So that was an amendment coming out of committee. Now it goes to the full Senate to see what happens. It must be given final approval by the Senate by February 20th. That's the cutoff date. And then if it's approved by the Senate, it'll move over to the House for the House's consideration. While we need to be proactive and we need to be telling our legislators how we feel about this, it's not until the House gets a hold of it, see what changes have been made, that we are going to have an idea of what the real effects are. But there are some bills in the House right now that could become part of this. Some of those changes involve reducing property tax and flipping everything over to local option income taxes. And they're also looking at separating. Right now, we make decisions on local option income tax that we have to share with cities and towns. They're looking at eliminating that, giving the county the ability to pass local option income tax for the entire county, but then having the cities having the ability to come in and adopt their own. So right now, we're limited to a 2.5% for the county in general, in total. They are looking at reducing our ability and making it like 1.9%, and the cities and towns having the ability to tack on another 1.2 to make up for the losses in these property taxes. So there are many floating parts around, moving parts here, so.
Why would they reduce our ability, because we don't have to share it?
Because we don't have to share it.
But would that local income tax avenue make up for the loss in the property tax?
Not until we see the fiscal when all this comes about, we don't know. But that's the assumption. Well, apparently the schools are going to have some ability. I don't know what that specific ability will be right now. But again, looking at how that breakdown was on the original, the majority of that problem was, or that loss was going to be to school corporations. And again, you know, we all would like to see property taxes lowered, but the schools have to operate. And we have to make sure that they have a reasonable amount of funds.
So they would, basically, they're trying to shift all the tax income from property tax over to income tax.
I won't say all, but a good share of it. And some of the limitations that were put on it last night, and this will possibly hurt us. And again, they're passing something that covers everybody to punish the few players that didn't manage their money well. So you're trying to punish them or bring them under control, but they're having to pass an overall rule that covers everybody. So if we've managed our money well, we could be hurt because we're now going to have to deal with this, because some of the things they're doing, they've already done it. Annually, they do the growth quotient that we're allowed to move our budget up a certain percentage based on inflation. They have artificially capped that. It was 4 for this year, even though inflation might have been 5 or 6%. Now that example really has more to do with 23 than it does today, but they're still capping it. They're looking at having a 0 growth quotient for next year and then 1% and 2% limits in the next couple of years. That would limit the ability to grow our budget to meet what the expenses are. I mean, because you're not going to have any control over what it costs to buy gasoline or utilities for our facilities. All of these things are going to move with the inflation rate, but our budget won't be able to do that. So you're going to have to be very careful. You did make mention, and this is not part of this bill, you did make mention of the wheel tax. In Representative Pressel's bill, there was a provision for a wheel tax, dividing community crossings up into different layers. You know, if you get what you get now in first group, but if they add more money to it, you have to have a wheel tax in place before you can apply for that additional money. So they are looking at that. Now, the one thing they did do there was a part of that bill that tacked on, and I think, don't quote me on this number, but I thought it was 50 cents on every delivery in order to generate money for your road funding. So if Prime delivered to you 50%, if Pizza Hut delivered to you 50 cents. 50 cents. For anybody that did these road deliveries, it would be 50 cents tacked on. And many businesses came out against that, and so that was dropped. But it's, until we know what this legislature is going to do, we're going to have to be very careful. We can't afford to go and look at other projects.
Is there any upside at all? It's not, I mean, I see the negative side of you move away from property tax to income tax. That income tax is going to be variable based on
Bob,
inflation.
I want you to hold that. It's 10 o'clock. We're going to get into our public hearing on the tax abatement here regarding Arbor Wood. So at this time, we'll open this up to a public hearing. Don, at this point, do we ask the audience if they have any comments they want to make at this point? Okay. Do we have any comments from the public regarding the tax abatement proposal for Arbor Wood?
Good morning, Bill Hartman, 1690 County Road 5. Just a quick comment, and this ties into the SB1, and I think at this point, you know, I've never been in favor of tax abatements, but I've kind of stayed out of the argument because of it's not our wheelhouse, it's in the council's ability to grant those or not grant them, but I think I need to speak up at this point with this SB1 and the uncertainty that we should hold off granting any more tax abatements. Till we see where that's at. I can't see, we're going to take some cuts. I know they did part this back considerably. I've got it here on Catalyst. But I think until we know where we're at with this SB1, we should hold off on any tax abatements.
Thank you, Bill. Anybody else from the audience have any comments, pro or con, regarding the proposed tax abatement? Hearing no comments, I'm going to close this part of the public hearing, public meeting, And we will proceed to vote on the proposal. Now, the approval resolution, we approved the confirmatory resolution at the last meeting.
No, the preliminary.
Yes, thank you. So at this point, Rick, you want to discuss anything on from being chairman of the Tax Abatement Committee? Anything regarding, would like to add anything before we call for the question?
Well, again, the Tax Abatement Committee did review the proposal. I do think that it is important that we try to encourage the additional development of businesses here within DeKalb County, because we are going to be reliant on having our people employed. And this particular facility does employ people. I would like to see them be a productive part of the county, rather than possibly not being able to continue with this facility. I think that we changed our tax abatement structure enough that we have given much fewer years in any of the tax abatement than we had previously. Throwing in another piece of this, for a big share of this is going to be for business personal property. And one of the things about business personal property is, under the current situation on business personal property, you never assess it at 100% of its value, but you never allow it to go below 30% of its value. So it's constantly there, no matter how old, it is still on the tax rolls. Part of the decision that they're making at the state is they've been trying to do away with business personal property for quite some time. And one of the things would be that they're going to look at upping the floor. Right now, anything that's $80,000 or less is not, you don't pay taxes on it. That's exempt. They're looking at moving that up also. So the state is changing that. By the time the legislature's done, this tax abatement might not be needed, because we might not be taxing the business personal property. So, and I think it's important to keep this as a viable company in DeKalb County, and especially on the east side. It's we don't want to do anything more that could cause a business to go out, be gone.
And I just want to add that the personal property, if it's granted abatement, was for 6 years, and on the real estate, it was for 2 years. So you're right. We have
Reduce that greatly.
greatly.
Can I ask why you guys did that? Why did the committee choose to do that?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you, Amy.
Sure. Why did the committee decide to reduce the amount of years on the tax abatements?
Well,
We thought what we were, when we went to the form where we actually evaluated and added points in that, we thought we were excessive. That looking at previous ones that we had done, was it realistic? And it was. They were, some of the ones we did last year were the very first ones we ever did. We just thought that it was excessive and that we needed to drop it down.
Excessive how?
In how many years, how long so many people were getting a full 10 years. Didn't think that was appropriate. That it had to be more restrictive and make sure that they had more skin in the game, basically. And we did not change so much the real property, if I recall. We changed what would be the business personal property.
that was a big one.
But you didn't fear that would somehow hinder the encouraging development by reducing that, by reducing the years?
We thought that there would be some issues with it, but it was also looking at what other areas were doing, not just DeKalb County, trying to bring us in line with what other areas were doing as we were making that judgment.
So other areas, other communities
Other
are giving
communities. I mean,
fewer,
Auburn, Garrett,
times,
Butler, all
giving
offer
less
tax
abatements.
abatement. All the counties around us offer tax abatement.
giving fewer years in tax abatements. And is there a reason that they're doing that?
All of them are doing it for the same reason that we're doing it, trying to encourage the growth in AV. You know, and yes, okay, now we get a 2-year tax abatement on real property, but when that when that 2 years is done, that AV is still going up because you still need to depend on your increased AV to get that tax rate lowered. You have to have that. And if you aren't spending your money here, we're not increasing that AV. So,
And to get them
Okay.
on a tax roll sooner.
What that?
And to get them on the tax rolls sooner.
Getting income sooner.
Any other questions? Now, Susan, where do we proceed here? I'm sorry, what?
Vote on the confirmatory resolution. There's one vote.
Okay, so we need to vote on a confirmatory resolution, correct? Okay,
and
so,
I'll make that motion that we
Okay.
approve the resolution.
well, let me read the title of the resolution first here. So, DeKalb County Council Resolution 2025-RCC-4, confirmatory resolution for the creating of an environmental revitalization area and real and personal property tax abatement. We have a motion by Rick Ring to approve the confirmatory resolution. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion by Rick Ring, a second by Bill Van Wy. Any further discussion from the council? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and vote. All those in favor of confirmatory resolution number 2025-RCC-4 for the creating of an environmental revitalization area and real and personal property tax abatement, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion is carried 5-1. So the confirmatory resolution has been approved. Now we proceed to vote on the abatement itself.
No, that's all in one.
That's all in one.
Okay, I'm sorry. It is. So, Don, anything else on this? Okay, so we will go back to our discussion on Senate Bill 1. And I just want to add a couple things here that the personal property taxes is a major priority with the governor. This is one of his platform pieces. And he's going to put a lot of pressure on a lot of people to get this through. Now, there may be some other areas, tax shifts, new creative taxes, that will go to the counties to give them the ability to do this. But don't be surprised if not too many things change from the governor. I've been there and I know what kind of pressure they can put on you to get that election priority through here. So wheel tax is one, and there's some other ones out there. I'm not even going to speculate or bring them up right now that could happen because we don't need to cause any panic in any areas right now here. But
I would just reiterate that number one, the governor, this is one of his signature plans when he ran, and I am not going to disagree that we need to have some adjustment to property tax. But there are, again, so many moving parts in this. When you, in some cases, we're looking at giving credit, and that's not the word I want to use. We're going to give more to over 65. So you get a more of a break. We're going to give more to veterans. We're looking at, there's a new proposal in here about giving a tax holiday for new home buyers, where they may not have to pay property tax for a couple of years. There's also, in another bill, there is a bill that would allow the county council to allow a more or less a reverse mortgage type situation with your property taxes. They could, if somebody who makes less than $70,000 a year would come in and ask to be given grace on maybe $500 of a bill, that would be set aside, and the county would collect it when the house sold. Now, my issue with that one is, okay, we still had those expenses for that year, and you know, you're not going to go crazy and give everybody the exemption, but how long can you carry that? And are they going to do it every year? Come back, okay, I want credit for 500, and it all builds, and I sell the house 10 years from now, and all of a sudden I get my money. But I'm having a hard time putting my finger on that one, because we still have the expenses. But it would be a decision by the council, the way it's written. Other things, when you make, they're gonna make some changes on how agricultural ground is assessed. If they lower that assessment, we still have those expenses. Some of that is gonna flow over to the 1% property taxpayers, the homestead payers. You had an issue last year that Eastside has dealt with when they changed the way they depreciated the personal property at the mini mills. Well, we still are going to collect that amount of money. Mini mills are going to pay less. That amount of money flows over to the property, to the other property owners. And whether it's the 1% class or the 2% class, but it still is going to flow over to other people. So you have to be careful with what kind of changes they're making. And it's where the unintended consequences come into play. You know, we wanted to make the mini mills equal to the other steel mills in the state of Indiana. Okay, that's a good thing to do, and encourages those other mills to stay in Indiana. But it had an unintended consequence of shifting that cost or that amount owed over to other taxpayers. So we got to be careful. So anyway, this resolution was done before the changes that were made last night. I think I would like us still to pass this resolution and ask the commissioners to pass the resolution, just to send the signal down to the state that it's an issue that we are very concerned about. But then I'm sure we're going to have to come back and address it in future meetings once we see what the final changes are at the state level.
My question before we went to that public hearing was going to be, is there any upside to shifting away from property tax to income tax? It seems like the downside would be that fluctuates on the cost of goods. If you have 1% on the cost of goods and gas goes down to $2 a gallon instead of $4 a gallon, you're collecting less tax. But is there any upside in what the state doesn't get to take, or do we have more control if it's income tax?
Number one,
that we
I've
collect
heard
here?
more of the negative, Bob.
Okay, I just wondered if there was
And
anything.
specifically, the negatives have come from Steuben County and Kosciuszko County. Because right now, they are a recreational area. They have a large number of cottages and things that the people don't live there. So if you give them a big break on their property tax for that particular property, you're not going to get replacement money through income tax, because the income tax is going to go to wherever they live permanently, not their vacation place.
They live 2 counties away, it's going to go to that
Exactly.
county.
2 states away.
Yeah, the two states, you know, we used to when I was EMS director, we always laughed because certain things would happen in Steuben County because the majority of the property owners lived in Toledo or somewhere else and just were in Steuben County at the lake. They didn't vote. But now, things are changing because a lot of them are actually moving to Steuben County now. But there are going to be downsides. One of the downsides, and this, I don't know if this one will get through, and it's not part of SB 1, it's part of a bill on the House side, in eliminating some of the property tax and going to the overall income tax, the ability to pass the income tax for cities and towns is limited to those cities and towns that are 3,500 in population or more. So what about Corona? What about St. Joe? What about Ashley? What about Hamilton? Well, they'll give, right the way it's written right now, the county has the ability to pass an income tax that everybody in the county would pay, but that money would go to those towns and cities that are less than 3,500. Now, that's a real tough one to take, making everybody pay that and it only going to a few people.
Yeah, and one of the other comments I thought was kind of hilarious is that they got people like, if you have a house in DeKalb County, they lower the property, put on an income tax, but you have this is what they want to quit, is they got a post office box address in Fort Wayne's, because, let's say Allen County, because Allen County hasn't raised the income tax as high as DeKalb. That was one of the comments made, and one of the speakers said, we're going to end that. They have to have a address.
Yeah.
Because we have too many people, like, you live here, but you got an address in Ohio where you don't have to pay the taxes as high as in Indiana.
Some ancient history, we went through this about 30 years ago, this same thing here on people living out of state, having two properties and so on. So this is nothing new. Bob, if there's an upside, it'll be for the state of Indiana because it's going to look good to other states and people looking to come here about the tax rate and everything, what the state has done to reduce it. So that's the only upside I can see. We talked about the community crossing grant either being reduced or disappearing. That money's going to have to be made up somewhere. Not sure where. And Bill, I know you're here. You've got some comments you'd like to make on this. Would you like to come up and talk here?
I did forward the Catalyst article this morning about the changes in the SB 1 to all of you. Yeah, I'm not sure where to go with this, but I believe that, and I'll say personally, I'm not sure the resolution should be rewritten. I don't know. It's actually obsolete, and we don't know what it's going to end up, so I don't know that I'd even be willing to sign the resolution opposing this at this point until they get more details on what this is really going to look like. I think the original proposal that Ron made is not going to fly, definitely. That's not going to happen, not even maybe close. There are some caps on 1% increase, I think, in the first year of tax increase, a 1% cap. I think there's a 2% on the second year, a 2% cap on any increase. And I think that would be an upside of the proposal that's come out of the committee, because instead of seeing a 5% or increase or even more than that, we saw some increases, I think, in the 30% range in recent history. So I believe if we have that cap, 1 or 2%, that would be an upside to the overall taxation, property tax. Personally, I don't know, income tax would be maybe a good option. I'd rather see a county sales tax, because that will capture money from every entity, everybody comes into the county. There is a trade-off on sales tax, or how much will go out of the county, how much a proposed will come into the county, I think we'd be on the plus side. DeKalb County, because of the events that we have, ACD days, and maybe the sports park coming in, that's gonna be a lot of sales tax. Another suggestion I had, and I made to Dave, and that would be to look at the food and beverage tax, which Allen County already has, or Fort Wayne, I guess it's Allen County. I think that's something we could look at, and there again, some goes out, but some comes in, but I think we'd be on the positive side of a food and beverage tax. Just because of the location to 69, and there again, the sports park and the ACD days. So I think we could offset these increases as proposed, as it has come out of committee. So I'm not sure that I would sign the resolution as it is worded today.
So Commissioner Hartman, are you suggesting that we table this and go back to it and look at it, this resolution as it stands, and rework it, or?
Yeah, I would suggest tabling it, yes. Till we have more definite information. I mean, what's worded in there really is not going to apply. I mean, it has become an exaggeration at this point, in my mind, as to what's actually going to happen. Now, yeah, you can send it down there, and some of these guys are going to look at it and say, well, that's ridiculous. You know, that's not something we're going to do. We can't do that. Obviously, we can't take a $5 million hit in DeKalb County, and they know this, without giving us some other kind of relief. The other kind of relief might be better than property tax. I'm not a property tax fan. I hate it. It's just ridiculous. It's so expensive to implement, for one thing. There's so many loopholes in it and glitches. I think a simpler tax would be better, even a income tax or a county sales tax. So yeah, I'd say table it.
I have a question on that, though, because you guys meet more than the council. So if they table, and won't the March meeting be too late?
Well,
Probably.
and I
So
would
my other, one more thing. So my other thought on that was, what if we discussed and maybe put some, like, where the impacts are gonna be, but not actually put the dollar amounts, so that they still can get something from both bodies, knowing that you both oppose that bill?
I think that would be appropriate. That would be, yeah, a good idea.
since the changes to Senate Bill 1 did take place just last night.
Right.
And since that was, this was done earlier, before any of those changes were made. And I do know that in talking personally with members of the Senate committee, that there are going to be many changes to the bill. So, maybe the better response would be just to have, maybe pass a motion stating that more investigation was needed or more information is needed, but these major hits are inappropriate to and it's not just us, it's cities, towns, and the schools in particular. That 48% of that issue is going to hit the schools. But there are definitely going to be more changes, and again, the turn is February the 20th. It'll go over to the House side, and they're going to make changes. When would our next meeting be?
The same day next year, 12th of March. Same day as today.
The next commissioners' meeting is,
And I wouldn't be opposed to waiting and doing a resolution at that time when we see.
It'll be in the
Would
House.
March be too late?
Well,
That
no, it'll
March
be in
wouldn't
the
be too
House.
late?
It depends, they're probably not gonna vote on the final version of that bill until close into April.
Okay, well
I
then,
think April 20th is their last day.
It's a long session.
So we can, probably between now and then, the better thing to do is to make a phone call to Ben and to Tyler Johnson and to Sue Glick and give them our individual opinions on these bills. Changes are gonna happen. We're gonna have something different for next year. We just don't know what it is yet, but they're gonna have to be very careful. You know, there are other things coming down the pike in the legislature too that will change our expenses. They're proposing a prosecutor's bill like we have with the public defender, where we'd take the expenses for the prosecutor's office and that we would receive they're upping it from 40% to 50%, if that flies, reimbursement from the state, which is good because it's those salaries, the prosecutor's salaries based on judge's salary, which we don't have any control over. It just rolls down through the prosecutor and the sheriff and the public defenders, the chief public defender. There is an issue that did not make it into the legislature at this point through a separate bill, although there was a separate bill previously. It has been determined by the state Supreme Court that the probation department employees are employees of the state, and yet they're paid by the county. And we have no choice in how much they're paid because those salaries are set by the state. We have no choice in who gets hired to be in the probation department because that's the judges. And yet we're paying their salary and they're on our benefits. So that's the fiscal on that last year was well over $100 million, I think, was some really, if that took every probation department in the state of Indiana. But it's a point that is going to be continually pointed out to the governor that these are your employees, why are we paying these bills?
You just don't fund them next year.
Well, how much trouble do you think we'd get in?
Why would you get any trouble? There's no mandate to fund them.
Yeah. You know, the other one is, and that whole probation thing among the County Council Association started more with the judges and the judicial group rather than the probation. Some of the small counties are the ones that flipped it over to the probation. But you had a number of counties where the judges were ordering that their staff be paid at higher rates than the council approved. And so there were lawsuits going back and forth, and judges can order us to pay their staff whatever they want them paid at. That they don't have to follow our rules and our percentages. So the idea was to send those all over to the state too. But those are issues that are going to continue to come up. But our expenses keep going up, and they keep reducing ways for us to pay for it.
It's going to be interesting to see, because I'm sure the governor is going to weigh in on this between now and March.
And he has a couple of times already.
Yeah, and I think it is going to be interesting if he softens his stance, which I don't think he will one bit. And this all may be a moot point because it's probably here it is and this is it.
Yeah.
Here's what your options are in the counties for new taxes and such, take it or leave it. And if
Yeah,
you leave it, you'll be penalized.
And we have to be careful. There are two things right now that we pay bond issues based on a certain income tax. One is for community corrections. That money is funded through the through the confinement tax that we're allowed to have. The other is the new highway garage. And the edit tax is not included in the income tax bucket that we get. So if that goes away, how do we pay that yearly payment on either one of those? So we have to be very, very careful about that.
Bill, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
Just listening.
So,
I have just a quick for Bill. Bill, I mean, do you feel like you've had adequate time to discuss this with Commissioner Dooley and Commissioner Miller at this point, this resolution? Because it does list that it's a joint between the commissioners. Do you feel like you've had the appropriate time to do so?
No, we have not discussed
Okay.
it.
This all just came up, and I've just sent it to both bodies last night.
At
They
9,
don't even,
yeah.
haven't even met yet.
Right.
We haven't even been able to discuss it.
All right.
And we can't do anything until Monday on it, so.
All right. With
Monday,
that in mind, I make the motion that we table this.
Do we have a second?
I will second.
Do we need to table it since we didn't even read it to vote for it?
It was on the agenda, was it not? SB1 joint resolution.
Yeah. So go ahead,
Tables
okay.
appropriate, yes.
Okay, who did that?
I will second. I think there's just too many hypotheticals at this point to even make a
So who
motion.
tabled it?
Rick Collins did.
Okay.
Amy seconded. Okay, we have a motion on the table to table this resolution till
Till next
next meeting? Okay, March 12th meeting.
Yes.
Although, any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Just a side note, something different, Bill. I think the county highway garage out there looks first class. And that lighted sign at night and stuff, it's really, really first class. Did a great job on that. Looks good.
We're really proud of it. Everything's going well. A couple little glitches yet. We still have a couple fixes to do, but other than that, it's going real well. And everybody's happy, and we got a good, efficient facility, and we can make more use of the dollars that we have.
It looks nice. Nice asset to the county there. Does anybody else have anything to bring before the council?
I make a motion that we adjourn.
All those in favor? Motion carried.
He didn't ask who opposed.